The seventh section is devoted to the law of cost. I would like to make this very clear to you, because intuitively, many people believe costs determine prices. They believe it because there is a kind of pricing mechanism in stores, in the commercial world, that appears to support that theory. Imagine I own a shoe store, and I buy shoes wholesale from a distributor for €100. Well, I add a margin of 50 and I sell them for 150. And everyone says, that's very reasonable. So what is the conclusion? If shoe costs rise, prices will tend to rise. And therefore, costs appear to determine prices. Nothing could be further from the truth. It is completely false. And now, with a little critical thought, you will grasp this immediately. If costs determined prices, there would be no entrepreneurial problem. All entrepreneurs would have a guarantee that they could recover via prices any costs incurred. The so-called law of cost is absolutely false, because the causality is exactly the opposite. It is not costs which determine prices, but market prices which determine costs. The genetic causal relationship is as follows. Human beings have a series of value scales. Depending on those, a market price is arrived at through the process we have studied. Entrepreneurs estimate the market price that will result from value scales and be set in the market tomorrow. They try to find out what it will be, to get a jump on it, to make an appraisal, an estimate, a valuation. And depending on that, today they decide to buy factors of production, and therefore to incur costs, to produce that good. And all the time they expect to incur costs lower than the price they will obtain. Therefore, it is the prices entrepreneurs estimate a priori which determine costs. It is as if we held a carrot in front of a donkey, and the donkey followed the carrot. The carrot is the price, and the donkey the costs. Costs always follow prices. This is a process in which entrepreneurs anticipate the future. They try to gauge, as if they represented tomorrow's consumers, what types of goods consumers will demand in the future, with what characteristics and at what price. And depending on that, they take the plunge today and incur costs in an environment of uncertainty. Many times they hit the mark and obtain entrepreneurial profits. At other times they make a mistake and sustain heavy losses. Costs never determine prices. The opposite is true. Prices determine costs. Huerta offered the following typical example. A hat is not worth €100 because it costs 90 to produce and the storekeeper adds a profit margin of 10. That is getting it backward. Instead, because the storekeeper believes he will be able to sell the hat for 100 monetary units, he is willing to incur costs of up to 90 to produce it. Take note, because in the future, many of you will be involved in the production of films. If costs determine prices, it would be a cinch to be an entrepreneur. You would take on any unlimited amount of costs to produce a film. €50 million. Why only 50? Why not 100 or 200? €1 billion, €10 billion. One hell of a movie. Since costs determine prices, there's no problem. We'll get it all back later. No. Therefore, the law of cost is false. Prices determine costs. Costs follow prices. It's obvious, really. Costs are simply the prices of the factors of production, and the factors of production have a price because they are useful for producing consumer goods people value. The causality is very clear. First comes the consumer good, which is valued and has a price, and that is what tends to determine the costs entrepreneurs will be willing to incur to produce that consumer good.